Welcome to the Market Decoder, your go-to podcast for digestible market insights. Join us as we deep dive into the latest trends, uncover valuable insights, and share expert perspectives you won't find anywhere else. Welcome back, everyone, for another Market Decoder. This time, we're going to be looking at the German federal election.
Oh, this is a fun one.
I know, right? So it happened a few days ago.
It was on the 23rd,
Yep, February 23rd.
and this wasn't like a regularly scheduled election, was it?
Right, this was a snap election
A snap election.
because the previous coalition government collapsed.
Wow.
So we're going to try to understand, what happened, what it means for Germany, and also potentially for Europe.
Okay, let's break it down.
Yeah, so this center-right party, the CDU-CSU, led by Friedrich Merz, they won the most seats.
They did, but they didn't get a majority.
Right.
So what does that actually mean for forming a government?
Well, it means we're likely going to see another grand coalition. The CDU-CSU is going to have to partner with another party to govern, and that most likely candidate is going to be the Social Democrats, the SPD.
Okay.
And I think what's interesting here is that some of the smaller parties, like the FDP, which is a very pro-business party, and the BSW, which is a socialist party, they didn't even win enough votes to enter the Bundestag, Germany's legislative body. So that can potentially simplify things for Merz, in that he has fewer partners to negotiate with. He's aiming to form a government by Easter.
Right. But I was looking at this article on German governing coalitions, and it looks like to change certain laws, like the debt brick, for example, you need a super majority in the Bundestag. So could that be a roadblock for him?
Well, you're picking up on a really, really important point. That debt brick has been a major point of contention in German politics for a long time, and it could be a huge factor in how this new government decides to tackle economic challenges that are facing Germany.
So can you help me understand this debt brick a little bit better? Like, I know it limits the amount that the government can borrow, but how does it actually work?
So basically, you can think of it like a household budget, but for a country. So Germany's basic law, which is their constitution, it includes this rule which limits what's called the structural deficit to a tiny 0.35% of GDP.
Wow, that is tiny.
It is. And the structural deficit, that's just, a kind of jargon term for how much the government is spending beyond what it takes in through taxes.
Okay, so the government's hands are tied by this rule.
In a way, yeah. That's where things get really debated, because some economists, they argue that this debt break, it's forced Germany into years of underinvestment in really crucial areas,
Like what?
like education, infrastructure, even defense. And they say that it's actually hurt their growth potential.
And Germany's economy has stagnated since the pandemic, right?
That's right. And that makes it the worst performer among the major Eurozone economies, which is not a title any country really wants.
Not a good look.
Not a good look. So some people want to reform this debt brick, but other people are pushing back.
What's the reasoning there?
So the people who are pushing back, they think that instead of loosening the purse strings, Germany needs to reprioritize how they're spending money right now and cut back on all this red tape.
Okay.
And they think that this would stimulate growth without having to resort to more borrowing. So it's really a clash of two different economic philosophies with really high stakes for everyone involved.
Right, so where does Merz stand on all of this?
That's the big question, because he's campaigned on a very business-friendly platform.
He did, and does that give us any clues?
I think it might. He really wants to lower taxes,
Okay.
fewer regulations, and potentially fewer social benefits.
So if he wants to reduce spending overall, reforming the debt brick to allow more borrowing may not be top of his list.
Exactly.
But then again, he has to find some kind of common ground with the SPD, doesn't he?
Right. They're much more focused on social justice and investing in things like education and infrastructure. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those two competing priorities play out in the coalition negotiations. This has implications beyond just Germany.
It's safe to say that he's looking to shake things up.
Oh, yeah, he's campaigned on change big time.
Like, what are some of the things that he's looking to change?
Well, one of the biggest targets is this thing called Ordnungsrecht.
Ordnance reg.
It's this massive body of regulations that covers pretty much every aspect of German business. And Merz argues that it's stifling innovation.
So, less red tape.
Exactly.
But is that really good for everyone?
Well, that's the big question. Our sources, they seem to think that this is actually a pretty big deal for markets. They're trying to figure out, okay, who are the winners and losers in this new environment. And there are definitely some sectors that stand to gain from Mertz's approach.
Okay, so give us the inside scoop. Who's likely to benefit the most?
Well, one area we want to highlight is the middle stand.
The middle stand?
These are the small and medium sized companies that really form the backbone of German economy. They often struggle to navigate this bureaucratic maze of regulations.
Makes sense. So, any kind of simplification would be great for them.
Yeah, fewer hoops to jump through.
What about the larger companies? Are there any specific sectors that are likely to see a boost?
Signs point to companies that are involved in digital and energy infrastructure, as well as what are called capital goods.
What do you mean by capital goods?
Yeah, things like machinery, equipment used in manufacturing.
Gotcha.
And Merz has really emphasized modernizing Germany's infrastructure and embracing new technologies, particularly in the energy sector. Germany is already a manufacturing powerhouse,
Yeah, totally.
but they are facing competition from other countries, especially when it comes to things like renewable energy.
So, if they want to stay ahead of the curve, they really do have to invest in these areas.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about defense. With the ongoing war in Ukraine, Merz has been pushing for a pretty significant increase in military spending. And that's something that the markets have really taken notice of. I remember reading that some investors are already putting their money into defense stocks because they're anticipating this surge in demand.
So, we've got small businesses, infrastructure, tech, defense, all potentially on the upswing. But every policy has its trade-offs. So are there any potential downsides or like unintended consequences that we should be thinking about?
That's such a great point because these policies impact people's lives and not just, abstract economic indicators, real people.
Real people. So what should we be worried about?
Well, one area of concern is what Mertz's proposals might mean for social programs. He's talked about making the system more efficient, but some people worry what that really means is cuts to benefits for people who need them the most.
Right.
And Germany has a pretty robust social safety net.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of part of their national identity.
Exactly. So any changes to that are going to have some controversy for sure. And remember, Mertz's vision is really for a much leaner government overall. So that could mean cuts to public sector jobs and potentially less funding for certain areas.
So it's not just the business world that's going to be impacted by these changes. The impact's going to be felt much more broadly.
Yeah, it's like a political earthquake that's shaking things up.
But Merz, he can't do it alone.
Yep,
He has to find common ground with the SPD to actually implement any of this stuff.
right.
The coalition negotiations are going to be fascinating.
They're going to resist some of Mertz's more radical proposals. So finding a compromise that satisfies both parties, that's really going to be tough, especially when it comes to the debt break.
So, given all of the economic challenges facing Germany right now and the need for investment, what kind of a compromise on the debt break would actually serve both Germany and the EU in the long run?
That's a tough question, and there's no easy answers. Germany needs to invest in the future, but they also have to be careful, not jeopardizing their physical stability or burdening future generations with tons of debt. And on top of that, Germany's economic health, it's very closely tied to the rest of EU, so they can't make any decisions in a vacuum.
So, what happens in Germany doesn't stay in Germany
No, it impacts the whole continent.
and probably has ripple effects globally as well.
Exactly, and that brings us back to our listener. Why should you care about all of this? Well, because these developments can impact things like global trade patterns, the stability of financial markets, even the prices of goods and services that you rely on.
So, this isn't just about, political maneuvering happening far away.
It really brings it home. So, as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I think it's important to remember that the German election is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
We've talked about the surprising election results, the debate over the debt brake, and the potential impacts on businesses and social programs.
Big stuff.
It's an ongoing story, and we're going to be here to help you make sense of it as the story unfolds.
That's what we'll do.
So until next time, keep diving deep, stay curious, see you later.
The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only. The opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect the views of any affiliated organizations or institutions. Investing involves risks, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research, consult with qualified financial advisors before making any financial decisions. The information shared is based on current market trends and data available at the time of recording and may change over time.